So let's get started then. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the third Georgia Bar Monthly Touch event and the first of this year. So Happy New Year. My sincere wishes that it's a happier and healthier year for all of you, all of us, and everyone around us. As part of our continuing to evolve Zoom competence, I will introduce a couple of reminders about how to use the platform, just to get the logistics out of the way in the very beginning. My name is Plamen Russev, actually. I am a member of the Attorney Wellness Committee, co-chair of the Mental Well-Being Subcommittee, and as of recently a member of the Lawyer Assistance Program. I am happy to continue the conversation of how are we going to make sure that we stay as healthy as possible in this very, very difficult profession of ours. But let me go back to the logistics of using Zoom, and we will dive into the substantive conversation in a moment. So if you haven't already, we suggest selecting the speaker view on your Zoom screen. That's available when you hover your cursor at the top right corner, and where you see view, you can select speaker view. That allows the speaker to be highlighted on a bigger screen so you can see who is talking. Our host, our wonderful host, Amber Reichert, will keep everyone muted except for the speakers, and we will ask you to stay on mute until you wish to ask a question, or unless the host unmutes you. We will have the opportunity for you to ask questions. So at that time, please raise your hand, either by doing this, and we will try to see you, or even better, at the bottom of the screen, there is a reactions button, and you see it has a raise hand button that you can click, and it looks like this. If you wish to ask a question without speaking up or being identified during the meeting, you can send me a private message. I'm Plamen Russev. You should be able to see my name. So if you select in the chat box a private message to me, no one else will see it. If you have concerns about putting up your question verbally with video. If you have concerns about that, you're also welcome to change your Zoom name. You can say something like participant if you want, happy lawyer or cranky lawyer, whatever you'd like. So we don't know who you are. I'm saying this because this session will be recorded and will be posted for public access on the Lawyers Living Well website. That's important so that the information that we share will become available to our colleagues who are not able to join or who find out about this later. So this also means that any participant might be featured on the screen if they speak, because the recording is also set in the active speaker view. So if you have concerns about that, you may wish to switch off your video and change your name if you don't want to be identified other than by your voice. We will have a breakout session, which means that we will connect in smaller groups. Those sessions are not recorded, so you can speak freely there. No small group sessions are recorded, only the big room where we are right now, only that is recorded. Private messages sent in the chat, so if you send something to me personally, also are not recorded or saved. Only messages sent to everyone, the entire group of attendees, will be visible to everyone and saved. With that, the topic of our meeting today is what happens when you call? We have been talking about using our the six prepaid session that are part of our membership benefits as members of the Georgia Bar. But we have discovered that it is still a bit shrouded in mystery, because what actually happens when you call this number? What do you hear on the other end? What questions are you going to have to answer? What questions can you ask? So we are really intent on demystifying and lifting the veil on any doubts, any questions, and any hesitations that exist with respect to using this invaluable resource. Because the more unknowns we have, the more they get in the way of our using it. That's why this is a super practical meeting today, in which you will see what happens, because we will do a role play of a call to the LAP hotline. You will also see what happens when we call for the first time a therapist to establish initial contact and talk about how to do work together. So get ready for some really practical and helpful information. This meeting has been put together and hosted by the Lawyer Assistance Program and the Attorney Wellness Committee of the Georgia Bar. And now I'm delighted to introduce my dear colleague, Lynn Garson, who is the chair of the Lawyer Assistance Program, as well as one of the founders of the Georgia Peer Program. She's counsel at Baker Hostetler, focusing her legal work on transactions and contracts for healthcare organizations. She is also a fantastic and vocal mental health advocate and author of 2 books that have nothing to do with law. So it's really interesting. She's a tireless speaker and mentor and a very active participant in all types of activities and events aimed at supporting and improving the mental health and well-being of the profession. So without further ado, Lynn.
So Plamen and I have a mutual admiration society. I feel the same way about him. And in fact, the first thing that I really have to talk about comes from words that I got from Plamen. You'll recognize this, I think, Plamen. So our conversation today is going to really be down in the weeds, as Plamen described. I'm going to take the 20,000-foot view of it very quickly as the introduction, because I think we've all gotten a little bit sidetracked in the idea that wellness is all encompassing. We call everything wellness nowadays. It's almost a buzzword. So where does LAP fall in that? And when would you call LAP? So this Plamen did this, and I've stolen it from him. I hope it's okay. I know it is okay. That it's a continuum. So wellness is preventative. Wellness is, everybody has stress. Nowadays, everybody has stress, at the very least. Everybody has the opportunity and the option to do self-care, yoga, meditation, breath work, which is Plamen's bailiwick, good nutrition, good sleep hygiene, all of those. That's wellness. There's a next level, which is an interventional level, when wellness no longer is enough and a person is in need of assistance. Now, we as lawyers, that's the last thing we often admit, is that we need help. But I'm going to read you, I think it's the single most important thing that, and this is also from Plamen, our propensity as lawyers is to overuse self-help even when it is no longer appropriate. There you go. I mean, that is what we do. So I think part of the plan here is to get people to become aware in themselves and in others of that distinction and when to go to the level of getting assistance. The assistance we're talking about, of course, is Use Your 6, provided by the LAP. As Plamen said, it's a prepaid service, and what that means, I think I heard it once, it's $1.85 out of your bar dues every year that goes to pay for this. So I think well worth it. It is, and again, we're really going to get into the weeds, but I'm going to do the high level. It's 6 prepaid sessions with a licensed clinical counselor. Those counselors come via CorpCare, and we have Lisa Hardy, who will be introduced later with CorpCare, on the call. They are the ones, obviously, members of the bar are not trained counselors. We don't do that. So that is outsourced to CorpCare. One thing that people always express a concern about is it confidential? Is it confidential? Is somebody, Plamen spent a great deal of time in the introduction. We know our concerns about anonymity and confidentiality around these kinds of issues. All I can say, and I do this every talk I give, is I will prostrate myself on the ground to promise you that this is confidential. I have done that and then asked a group of people, do you believe me? Raise your hands. And there's always people who go, no. So, there's nothing I can do about that except to tell you that I talk frequently with Paula Fredericks and other members of the council for the bar. They are not spending their days looking for people to discipline. They've got plenty of other things to do. And I say that a little bit tongue in cheek. It's true. But, the other piece of this that I've come to think about more recently with COVID, especially, is it's a twin dialogue. So yes, it's confidential. Absolutely. I guarantee you, I promise you it's confidential. Number two is stop worrying about whether it's confidential. And if you need help, get it. That is far more important. If you need help, if I've been there, I know what it's like. If I hadn't gotten help, I don't know where I would be right now. So it's extremely important to use your six. It's out there for you. There is an 800 number. I'm not going to give it to you because you're not going to remember it. You can Google Georgia Lawyer Assistance Program. All of the information, including the 800 number, will come up. So thank you, Plamen, for allowing me to speak. And I think this is such a valuable service that you've put together, and very, very happy to see this happening and to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. This is really important. I really appreciate you mentioning some of the obstacles that we know and we are very well aware of that just keep getting in the way to our seeking that sort of help, even when we become aware that we may need it. So I'm going to highlight them very briefly because we need to name them and we need to keep chipping away at them by recognizing that these are obstacles that are unique to us as lawyers, and they are the result of our training and the way we have wired our brains over however many years of this type of thinking and this type of behavior. But before that, special welcome to all of our colleagues who actually were brave enough to switch on the video. It's delightful to see your faces. And my invitation to everyone else who feels comfortable, please do that. It'll be really nice to see your faces, and that deepens even the connection that is possible for us, even in this virtual gathering. So if you're able to, and if you can, and if you want, please switch on your video, and we're delighted to. Hi, Zane. Thank you. So please join us by video if that feels right to you. Anyway, back to those pesky obstacles. So we know that as lawyers, we're trained to prepare for, and we eliminate or minimize all unknowns, which are usually seen as threats and potential sources of problems. We're also trained to expect the worst about that which is unknown. So guess what? The LAP hotline is still unknown, therefore it's threatening. So it's so easy for us to automatically apply this thinking and this training to the LAP hotline. And the reality is that most of us really don't know what it's like, because most of us don't have the actual direct experience of what it is to call, what it's like to call the hotline. So it's not surprising that we keep putting it off day after day. Well, don't worry, you'll see a call to the hotline a little bit later today. Also, we've been trained to have or find the answers and solutions to our clients' problems. And we've become tricked into the same expectation for ourselves. Well, that's not possible because we don't have an objective perspective on our own situation, and all humans have blind spots. That's why we need another trained professional's perspective to help and support us, especially with these blind spots and especially with these situations that we cannot, no matter what, view and approach objectively. We're also uncomfortable sharing personal challenges because that makes us appear weak or vulnerable. Well, guess what? Thankfully, therapists don't care about that. And in fact, are trained to support people exactly through that type of challenge, regardless of how they appear. So we will show you how working with a therapist can provide answers and solutions we cannot find on our own, but also how being open and vulnerable actually allows a therapist to help us better. So we want our clients to tell us everything about the situation presenting their legal need, right? So we can be good clients and do the same when we work with a therapist, making their job fuller and easier. The stigma and lack of understanding about mental and emotional health challenges in our practice is very real, very persistent, very solid. That's why we keep this conversation going, and that's why we keep sharing our personal stories to normalize this, so it is no longer the big monster that currently it is. There's absolutely no reason for that. And in a way, when you think about it, we're actually bringing our profession into more of an adulthood when we're able to speak openly about these conversations in a mature and appropriate way. The concerns about confidentiality, all I'm going to say after Lynn's fantastic head-on tackle of this is, yes, there are very solid protections in place, and we can keep saying that until we're blue in the face. But my question for you is, when does confidentiality become an excuse not to get the help you need? It's a question that only each one of us can answer. Another important concern is about the time commitment required. So we'll tell you how much time it takes on average for each step of the process in using the LAP Hotline and in working with a therapist. So to help me with that, I have two fantastic special guests today. The first one of them is Lisa Hardy. She is Vice President of Clinical Operations at CorpCare Associates. This is the Georgia Bar's independent counseling service provider. They're the people who pick up the phone when we call that number, the hotline. Lisa is also an advisor to the Lawyer Assistance Program and has more than 35 years of experience in mental health, substance abuse, and human resources. At CorpCare, she oversees all aspects of the program delivery systems and quality control, plans and leads trainings for managers, employees, clients, and industry leaders. She has seen it all, and she knows what happens during these calls. She knows what happens and what's likely to arise. So fantastic first-hand experience that she will share with us. And I'm also delighted to introduce Kelli Grant, who is Corporate Director of Case Management and National Business Strategy for Caron Treatment Centers. Kelli is a non-lawyer member of the Lawyer Assistance Program. So again, she has seen it from multiple perspectives, both in being a member of the Lawyer Assistance Program, but also in her own clinical experience working with lawyers and confronting the issues with lawyers that they face, supporting them as they work through those difficult issues. She has worked for more than 15 years at multiple levels of care in both outpatient and residential programs. And again, the depth and practicality of experience that both of our guests share is invaluable, which is why I'm delighted to have them here. So with that, are you ready to see what happens when you call the LAP hotline? That's what happens next in our meeting. So Lisa and I will do a role play. I will call the hotline, and we will go through the process of this initial conversation. And then you'll be able to ask any questions you have about this process or about what you heard during what you're going to see right now. Lisa, do we keep our video on or do we just switch to audio? Does it matter to you?
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I really thought turning off the video might be better because that's the reality of the experience.
Okay, let's do that then. I thought that might be more realistic. Okay. So I finally got the courage and I'm calling the LAP hotline.
Georgia LAP, this is Lisa. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to use my 6.
Okay, I'm glad that you called today. Can you tell me a little bit about what prompted you to call?
Well, I am kind of how much do I have to tell you about this right now, by the way? What do you need to know? What do you want to know?
That's a great question. I do want to reassure you, first of all, that the program is confidential. Any information that you and I talk about or that you talk about with a counselor is not going to be disclosed to anyone, including the bar. The only exception to that is something you're familiar with, and that's if someone is in danger. What I would like to have happen is to spend just a few minutes with you right now. And when you let me know a little bit more about what's going on and what your concerns are, that's going to help me direct you best and give you the best direction, the best counselor match. And it's also going to let me maybe say some things right now that might help and encourage and put you a little bit more at ease.
Okay. All right, let's try again. Then what would be helpful for you to know?
And who am I speaking with?
Oh, yes, my name is John Smith.
Okay. Hi, John. And in case we were to get disconnected, is there a phone number that I can have so I could call you back?
Yes, sure. That number is 123-555-0099.
Okay, great. Well, John, I know that making this call was difficult, and you just made reference to use your 6. What does that mean to you?
Well, I know that there are 6 sessions I can have with the therapist, so I wanted to find out what I can use these for. I'm like really just like so overwhelmed and just I feel like at the end of my rope. Is that even something that I can use this for? I mean, I don't have any like mental health condition or anything like that, but I'm just stressed and tired, and sometimes I get like really irritable and there's just like too much all the time, and even now, like I'm calling you between calls, and at any time there could be this other client that might just present something else. So I don't know.
Well, the things that you described are absolutely things that the lawyer assistance program in your 6 sessions can help you with. And certainly we want to look at circumstances and situations and the impact on you. So we're not really concerned with mental health labels and those type of things either. So you mentioned being overwhelmed and feeling at the end of your rope. Can you tell me a little bit specifically, how's that affecting you? How's it affecting you getting your job done, being able to sleep at night, having fun, those type of things?
Fun? Well, I don't quite remember when was the last time I honestly had fun, but sleep is kind of messed up. I either have a hard time falling asleep, or maybe I just like wake up in the middle of the night and then I can't go back to sleep. Sometimes I wake up just too early, and then I'm so worried about all this stuff I'm working on that I just get on the computer immediately. Then there's my spouse and kids at home, and when they start running around and all that, and okay, sorry, what did you ask me?
Well, you told me a lot right then, that certainly your sleep is disrupted, and it feels like it sounds like you feel like you don't have any downtime. You don't get the opportunity to kind of disconnect. Have you ever been in any counseling before?
Nope, I haven't. I don't even know what that's like.
Okay. Well, the things that you described are all things that counseling can help with. Once you begin to work with a counselor and learn some things about yourself and get some different techniques, you're going to find that you're going to begin to be able to sleep. You're going to be able to take a little bit of time out and debrief yourself, be able to catch your own breath. So you're going to learn things, and the counselor's going to help you, especially in the beginning as you get started. When you think about talking with a counselor, do you have a preference of a male or a female?
Good question. I don't think I do. Mm-mm.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. No problem with that. And one of the things that we think is real important is the visual. So much of communication is nonverbal. Prior to the last year, we would have absolutely been saying, let's get you in to see a counselor in person. That varies a little bit right now by community. Do you know if you have a preference? Would you go in person? If you
Right now I would prefer not to. I'd rather do a video call right now,
Okay.
like with everything going on,
All right. Well, good. And I do again want to assure you that our counselors use platforms that are secure. So it might not be FaceTime or something like that, but it's going to be a secure platform where that you can have a good connection with the counselor.
Okay.
We are going to encourage you that when you go for your appointment, albeit video, that you give it the same priority that you would if you were going in their office, so that you are where you can talk freely. You don't have to worry about colleagues or your spouse overhearing your conversation. You're not going to be interrupted.
Oh, can I have the call? Can I take the call in my car? Because with the kids at home and all that.
You sure can, and that's
Uh,
probably more common than you might think that it is.
mhm.
Um,
And how long is the session with the therapist? Is it
Generally,
like 30 minutes? What is it?
Yeah, that's a
An
good
hour?
question. Generally, somewhere in the 50, 55 minute, maybe not quite an hour, but it depends. Again, they have to have some guidelines, but begin to kind of wrap up and give you some challenges. It's not uncommon to have maybe some things that you're going to do on your own during the week, or that you're going to think about or work on, so that when you go to the next session, you'll have a place to kind of pick up and move on through. But
Oh,
about
homework. Okay.
Yes. And the more that you sound real motivated, you definitely describe a lot of frustration, and sounds like you're looking to make some changes. And that's going to cause these 6 sessions to go really a long way for you. I also want to just encourage you not to limit it to 6 if you and the counselor decide that you need more. Although those additional sessions aren't paid for, the counselor will work with you so that it's affordable, either through your insurance or some sort of ability to self-pay. So if you stay motivated and with that open mind, I think you'll have a really good experience.
Well, I don't know how much of an open mind, but my spouse pushing me to do that, and I have something to do it too.
Well, sometimes that is where the ball gets started. Now, we have a lot of options. And so if I give you too many at one time, sometimes that kind of bogs down the process. So
What
as
do you
we were,
mean? Yeah, about options, too many options.
well, if I give you a list of 10 counselors and tell you you could go to any of them,
Well, I
um,
don't really know what to do with that. Yeah.
right. And so as you've been talking, I've been thinking of a couple of different counselors that came to mind as would be probably good matches for you. So if you've got a piece of paper and a pen, or if you use
Yep.
your phone to take notes, what I'd like to do is I'm going to give you 2 or 3 names,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll tell you exactly step by step what's going to happen as you make that phone call.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ready?
Yeah.
While I'm getting that information up, you did mention feeling a little bit at the end of your rope. Does that ever lead to thoughts of suicide, of taking your life, that your family would be better off without you? Any thoughts like that?
Nah, not yet, or not seriously. I mean, sometimes I would say like crap like that, but I don't think I ever mean it seriously. Not yet.
Okay. And when you do say those things, what's the next thought that you have that makes you not follow through or say that that's not something serious?
Oh, I kind of get shudders when I hear myself say that. So yeah. So
Okay. Any thoughts of harming anyone else?
well, again, more jokingly than really. Yeah, no, we have some beloved clients and colleagues, but yeah, no, I think it really is more of my like venting off.
Okay. And you feel like that if that ever became more than just kind of venting, that you could call us or call some good friend and vent and talk about that?
Yeah, actually, I have a good colleague. I usually call when it becomes too much. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for that reminder.
Okay. Do you have any concerns that you've noticed? Maybe you're drinking more alcohol, you're using prescription medications or other things to bring some relief to stress and anxiety?
I think I'm just like having my usual amounts of drinks, and I'm just like keeping up with my meds.
Okay. And can you share with me what your usual amount of drinks is?
It's like a glass or two uh, a day, usually dinner.
Okay. Well, it's just something to be
Oh,
aware.
wine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So something that you want to be aware of if you notice that you're turning to that more often, if you're really planning your day around that or looking forward to that moment.
Sometimes it helps me sleep though, so I don't know.
Well, and I think with the counseling, you're going to find some alternatives that will help too.
Okay.
And so I did get this information. One of the counselor, his name is David Jones.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got
And
it.
David's number is 404
Mm-hmm.
555
Mm-hmm.
1234.
Okay. Got it.
Now, David's in private practice and doesn't have a secretary, so it's not unusual for you to have to leave a message. So I'm going to encourage you to leave a message with your name and phone number and a good time to reach you back, and he will definitely call you back and talk
Mm-hmm.
with you. Okay.
Good. Good. By the way, oh, I see a call coming. How much more do we have?
Um,
Do you have any other information, or can we
yes,
wrap up? Cool.
do you have time for me to give you just a couple of more numbers?
Can you email them to me?
Yes, I'd be happy to email those to you. What's your email address?
So johnsmith@mail.com.
Okay. Give me about 10 minutes and then look for this email. And if it's okay, can I call you back in the next couple of days and just make sure everything's gone well for you?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, thank you, John. I am so glad that you called today, and you take good care.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're back. So we're opening this up for questions and observations as observers. What questions maybe did that role play call answer for you, or what additional concerns do you have? Also, what did you notice that's an important point either for you to take about the program or to share with others as part of demystifying? Javon. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. And I won't be keeping my camera on after this. Sorry, I multitasking.
Thank you for joining.
But Lisa, are you the one that answers all the calls, or are you just this? Is it a bank of people that respond?
Yeah, it is a team. We call our team triage or intake specialist. Internally, we have a team of 4. They work staggered shifts between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's our internal staff. Outside of those hours and on the weekends, we have a partnership with a counseling answering service. So it's not an answering service that just takes a message. It is a counseling group that are going to perform the same functions that we do, except giving the counselor referral. That's the only step that does not take place when you call in the evenings, over the weekends, but any type of in the moment support, validation, safety, all those things are handled. That team also backs us up during the day, should for some reason, we need more calls are ringing at one time than we could answer.
And what if someone were in distress, or someone was suicidal, or that you felt needed more assistance? What would happen then? Are you trained to handle that as well, or do you send them to? How do you handle those?
Absolutely. And we are, everyone who answers, myself included, others, everybody is a master's level or above counselor. When one of us is on the phone and we begin to think that there might be some risk, we, on our own private internal message, we're able to flag our colleague, and that colleague stops everything they're doing and they just pay attention. Like if I'm the person who took the intake, I would have a colleague just waiting to help me in any way they need to. Because if you have someone who's with some pretty serious imminent risk, the goal is to keep them on the phone, is to keep them safe. And so my job would be engaging that person to keep them on the phone. Then my colleague, in some cases, we're able to ask the person, is there someone else we could call, that could come be with you, or that could take you to the emergency room, or that. So maybe it's engaging another person. It's doing whatever we need to do to keep that individual safe. But again, 24 hours a day, the people who are answering the calls are skilled and qualified to handle in the moment emergencies.
Okay, and then I have another question on the opposite end of the spectrum for the people who, we've been telling people use your six. I tell them that there doesn't have to be anything wrong with you to use your six. So if someone calls, have you had where the questions about their mental state makes them feel like it's too much to respond to? Like, is there a gauge on, I'm just calling because they said to use your six and I just wanted to find out more about it. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Is there any difference in the type of communication?
And again, a great question. And some people have been listening to you because we do get some of those calls. And that's really the beauty kind of this. We don't talk off of scripts, because we know some basics that we need to do, but we do go off the caller. In this case, John, he really was more forthcoming than he might have realized in telling us kind of what was going on in the struggles. But we do absolutely get the person who just says, I'm hitting a wall, or, things just aren't good, or, hey, anybody could benefit from a little counseling. I will tell you that we are always going to ask the safety questions directly. We might couch them a little bit different or approach them a little bit different, but we do go ahead, even though sometimes that may feel like out of the blue, because we are responsible for what we didn't ask to. But so we take our lead based on the caller. I could have stayed with John probably 5 more minutes, but there are plenty of calls that we have where the people don't want to say a lot, and that's okay. They're like, no, I just called to make the appointment. I just called to that's great. Let's go ahead. One thing though, that we know kind of historically is whatever prompted you to call right now, whether you're uncomfortable or you're just using it because it's there, that feeling will go away. Even if it's a real problem, it'll subside a little bit. It'll get swept under the rug. And so we want to bond enough with you in that call that when we say, hey, you really want to go ahead and follow through and do this, that you're going to believe us and trust us and want to do that. So we want to do a little bit of bonding and connecting, but we're really going to take your lead in keeping it simple to the facts, move on. You got this.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I did it. I got it. I got my 6. I used my 6 and kept on going. So, but I just wanted to ask those
Good
questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Javon. In the meantime, I've received a question and also a comment. So let me address the comment because Amber, do you have the instructions on how to, basically the instructions for using the Zoom meeting, you know, for people, how they want to show up, if they want to ask questions, basically that intro in the beginning. Do you have that written that you can post in the chat for easy reference?
I sure can. As far as sending you a direct message?
Sending me a direct message, and also for any participant if they'd like to change their name to a participant or viewer. I see that some of our colleagues have chosen to do that. Yes, just to have that as easy reference for anyone for whom that is a concern. We need to continue honoring that. The question that came up is another one that is very practical. If you have a therapist already that you'd like to continue working with, are you able to still use the LAP services?
So while we definitely value and appreciate the established clinical relationship, if that individual is not in our network, then no, we will recommend that you continue with that. And if somewhere down the future your needs change and you want to change counselors, then using the 6 provided through the program. But generally, if you're connected, we wouldn't want you to make a change just because you know you weren't going to have to pay for 6, and then if that counselor is not in our network, we wouldn't be able to use them.
Thank you. There's also a question that we received earlier, and it's related to what you just answered, Lisa, and that is, do I have a choice of the doctor or the therapist that I visit?
Yes.
How do I select?
Yeah, absolutely. It again kind of depends on how much time you want to do on the initial call. First thing, we almost always ask you male or female, and then there can be some other preferences. We will try to match as many of those preferences. Like I say, we have plenty of choices, and yes, you can choose. We're also going to tell you that if you go and you see the counselor the first time and you just go, that just wasn't a good match for me, all you have to do is call us back and let us know that. Not only do you get more referrals, but we don't count that first session as part of your 6. It's as if it didn't happen, since it wasn't a good match for you. So lots of choices. The only thing to know that the LAP does not cover psychiatrists, and we don't cover psychologists for services other than counseling. None of their psych testing and some of their other specialties. So the majority of the network are master's level clinicians. We do require that they're all independently licensed. We vet them and those type of things.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions from our audience for Lisa? And if you don't have it right now, you'll have the opportunity to ask that later. So are we ready to now meet or have first conversation with the therapist? All right, let's do it. So Kelli, again, are we having a video chat or audio?
It would be audio since we wouldn't be set up for video the first time you're calling. So I think
Okay.
with you and Lisa, we'll do the same thing.
All right, so let's do the same thing again then. And here I am. All right, a little bit of the setup. I've called, oh, are you Kelli, by the way?
Yes.
Is that your name?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I've called Kelli a couple of times. We've traded some voicemails, and now we finally found the time that both of us can be available and chat. So, hi Kelli, I'm glad that we're finally speaking.
Hi, me too. Sorry about the game of phone tag, but I'm glad we're finally able to connect.
Yes. So, yeah, you know, since I called, things have kind of like changed a little bit. So I don't even know if I will need to do any work with you, but at least maybe you can tell me about what you do, and maybe I can keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to process that with you. And I want to, first of all, I just want to commend you for taking this first step, right? I know it probably wasn't easy to call the LAP and then to call me, and we had to play phone tag a couple of times. So just want to commend you for taking this first step, because I know it probably wasn't easy. And I hear you that things have changed a little bit since you initially called me. But first, let's just, prior to us even scheduling a session, I like to do just kind of a brief consult where we get a feel to see if we feel like we're the right match for one another. So I like to assess the current situation, maybe what was happening then versus what's happening now, and just better understand what led you to making the initial call. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, what's going on now, and as well as what was going on when you initially reached out.
Okay. Well, so when I called first, I was like really completely overwhelmed, and everyone was tugging at me, and work was like really intense. I was just like working on so many things all at once. The kids were like really crazy. I don't know what was going on, but they're just like running all over the house. My spouse was getting like really impatient with me, and I just felt like I was at the end of my rope, and it's just like, wow, I wasn't sleeping right. So what happened is that, so some of those cases have closed. My workload is much more manageable right now. My in-laws have come, and they're to the house, and they're staying with us for a little bit. So we're getting a lot more help. So things are much, much better. Yeah.
Okay. And, I hear you on that. I do want to say that oftentimes, throughout life, right, we go through periods where things are really hard, and then where things seem easier, or where problems seem to take care of themselves until the next issue arises. So it almost can feel like it's kind of constantly a game of cat and mouse, right? So
yeah, I kind of don't want to also like lose, like waste your time, because I know that you're probably like very busy. I mean, with the phone tag and all. So, and I mean, and the things that I'm feeling like right now, doesn't everyone feel that, especially right now? So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, no, I hear you. And, balancing work and life, that's never easy, right? And then there comes a time where you have to evaluate what your priorities are, what's most important to you. And that's one of the great things about therapy, is to help you be able to do that. And, I always like to point out that asking for help, that's never a sign of weakness. It's never, you don't have to wait for things to be at a crisis level. It's actually the opposite. Asking for help or suggestions, or just coping skills, or more tools to have in your toolbox, it's actually a sign of strength, and it's only going to help you in the future. And I know you're an attorney, based on the fact that you got referred to me through the LAP, and as a lawyer, you're under a great deal of pressure. And, typically from those first days of law school, you're conditioned to endure difficult schedules, and traditionally attorneys receive little to no training at all about how to handle stress in healthy ways. So, I've found, I obviously don't know you yet, John, but just in my experience working with attorneys, I found that y'all have a natural talent for problem solving, and you obviously have superior critical thinking skills. So those same characteristics that help you shine in your profession can allow you to convince yourself that you have everything under control. And that's one of the great things about therapy is then when you seemingly might be feeling like you're losing control, you then have those tools in your toolbox to help you get through that crisis, that stressor, whatever it may be, in a different way where you don't feel like you're at the end of your rope, I think is what you had left on that first voicemail from me. So I would encourage you to actually move forward with therapy so you don't get to that place again. So is that something that you would be open to? And I can tell you a little bit more about what our sessions might look like.
Yeah, actually that sounds good. And honestly, it's a bit of a relief to hear you say what you did, because I wasn't even sure if a therapist would know how to work with a lawyer. I mean, our work is just like so specific and there are so many things. So if you haven't done it, if you haven't lived, what help can you be? But what you said, it sounds like you've worked with quite a few lawyers, and so what we are going through. I mean, I'll give you my specifics. You just wait. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually love working with attorneys. Well, great. Well, I'm glad that you're open to sort of hearing more about it. So, and based on your previous voicemail, you said you've never done therapy, right?
no, so I have no idea what it's like. And well, I know we'll be meeting by video, so I will not be laying on a couch, right?
Even if we were in person, you wouldn't be laying on a couch.
Oh, okay.
If during our video sessions, you want to lay on your couch at home, you're welcome to.
All right. So I don't have to squeeze myself in the car and all that. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So what we do prior to our first session is I'll send you over some paperwork to complete. And then really we'll spend our first session just getting to know one another. I am a believer that your relationship with your therapist is like any other, in the sense that it usually works best if we're able to connect. And if we're not, that's okay. I would refer you back to Lisa so that you can find a therapist that you are able to connect with, because that's incredibly important. And don't worry, during that first session, when we're getting to know one another, you don't have to leap into your deepest and darkest secrets. It's really just for therapy to be the most helpful. We need to build trust together, and building that trust happens over several sessions. So our first session is really more of an introduction, which is the beginning of forming that trusting therapeutic relationship together. So I really want to understand what your goals are and your expectations. I want to learn more about your relationships and your interests and your strengths. And I want to know what matters most to you, because my job as your therapist is really to guide you where you want to go. I want to know what you've done to manage your mental health in the past, and talk through what worked and what didn't, so that I have a better understanding as to how to best help you, right? And because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. So even though, yes, to your point, I've worked with a lot of attorneys, it doesn't mean that what works for them will work for you, and vice versa. So it's a very individualized process. And I do also like to set the tone that for people to understand prior to coming in, there is no such thing as a one session cure. So even though you'll hopefully feel a little bit better when you leave, your symptoms certainly won't immediately disappear. And just want to acknowledge that when you're calling me today saying you think you might not need this because you're not feeling like you were, the first time, I just want you to be mindful of that. So again, this is going to be, a journey that we do together, whether that's 6 sessions or longer. Every scenario is different, but I just want you to commit to the process, and also just keep in the back of your mind the way you were feeling that day that you reached out to Lisa and that you reached out to me. And like I said, the goal is really to prevent you from getting to that point again. So
Can I commit after the first session?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Can I commit after the first session?
Yes.
Okay. How long are the sessions, and how often do they happen?
50 minutes. Typically we find that doing them weekly is most beneficial, but obviously people's schedules, may cause that to fluctuate some, but ideally we would meet weekly for about 50 minutes.
Okay, so potentially like a month and a half working together. All right. All right, I see.
So is this something that you'd like to schedule a session and then we'll take it from there?
I was like really worried that you were going to be asking me some questions that I don't want to answer, but what you said, it really sounds like in the first meeting you want me to tell you about me, and well, I don't know if 50 minutes will be enough. So yeah, okay, let's do that.
Okay. Let me get your email address, because as I said, I'm going to send you over some forms and information for you to read and fill out prior to our session.
Yeah, it's johnsmith@mail.com.
Perfect. Okay. And then I'll also email you my availability and let me know which of those times is best for you. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kelly.
You too. Have a great day, John.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. All right, we're back. So once again, invitation to all of our participants. Any questions, any observations, things, maybe new things that may have surprised you about what you saw, what you heard, knowing as Kelly said, that every conversation will be unique and individual, and I was kind of like making stuff up, so. Oh, Lisa, did you have, oh, sorry. Don.
Good afternoon, everyone. I had a quick question that I wouldn't have thought of had you guys not had this presentation. If someone uses their 6 and are recommended to continue the sessions, which just came up in this role play, what happens then?
Sure.
Lisa.
Yes, we do allow our counselors to make self-referrals. So if they feel like they're the best match to continue working with you, they'll look at your insurance, like say if they provide a sliding scale, whatever arrangements can be worked out. If they're not the best person for you, they can make referrals and recommendations to other resources. But the counselor that you work with is not going to just bring everything to an abrupt halt, because the 6 prepaid LAP sessions are over. They're going to have invested in you clinically, and you're going to have invested in them, and they will give you direction of next steps.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add, actually, from my own experience of having used the 6 sessions, I found that I was able to resolve the specific issue that I was working on within 4 sessions. So I was surprised, honestly, but it happened. So I didn't even have to use my 6. So that's also possible.
And
thank you. This is great.
That's great to hear. Now, your 2 remaining sessions are still available to you. Let's say that had been this year. Those 2 remain available. So a couple of months down the road, that same issue comes back up or something different, it won't matter. You still have those couple of sessions. One general comment I want to make, while Kelly did a great job, sometimes when you call to make your appointment, it won't be quite that in depth. Some counselors do have secretaries and administrators, and they're kind of going to make you an appointment. But the things that she actually said on the call then take place in that first session. Again, that's going to vary a little bit of how far they go. One piece that I didn't get to with John, but I would have typed it in the email that I sent him. We go ahead and call our counselors. Like, let's say I referred him to, David, Susan, and Mary. I'm going to call David, Susan, and Mary, and I'm going to say, hey, just wanted to let you know, we're going to use initials, possibly a first name and last initial, but not entire names. Hey, just wanted to let you know, I've referred this person to you. They are through the LAP. And if they give you a call and schedule an appointment, please let us know. So they have the heads up in that when you call, hopefully they're not going, who are you? And what program did you say you were with? So,
and on to piggyback off of what Lisa said, something I do want to mention that isn't necessarily common sense. When you are calling to schedule an appointment with a therapist, as Lisa mentioned, many therapists, especially if they work in a larger practice, they do have some type of secretary or office manager who's answering the phone and scheduling appointments. You can always ask to do a quick phone consult with that therapist prior to scheduling an appointment. So what Plamen or John and I just did, you can certainly ask to do that. I don't know a single therapist who won't do like a 10 to 15 minute sort of phone consult to, again, see if you feel like it's the right fit. If you were to call and ask for that and they said that's not an option, to be completely candid with you, I would call Lisa back and say, please give me another option. And that's just not something that a lot of people know, is that you can request that sort of 10 to 15 minute initial phone consult prior to scheduling an appointment.
I have a question that we have received, and here it is. It's a bit long as it sets up a situation. I had a client overdose a couple of years ago after her trial. I knew her substance abuse issues were severe and out of my control, but that didn't stop me from being a wreck after I got the news she passed. Even in the most extreme of circumstances, our job is helping people. Knowing what kind of profession this is, what are ways we can better deal with situations like this when they arise without allowing them to drag us down into the depressing pessimism of, this is just what we signed up for? And if I may tag on to that question, to Kelli and Lisa, what tend to be the most frequent types of issues that you see lawyers bring up? Just to give this some context.
Well, so in full disclosure, I specialize in the substance use disorder, co-occurring mental health field. So all the attorneys I work with these days have some type of substance use disorder, or otherwise they don't usually get my information if they're not struggling with whether it be alcohol, prescription drugs, illicit drugs. So for me, those are obviously the calls I'm getting, whereas I don't want to, Lisa can answer. I would imagine she gets more calls for the depression, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, but Lisa, I'll let you answer that.
Sure. And being with a treatment program, while that may be something you ultimately get referred to, that's not a frontline LAP. You're not going to be sent to a treatment program when you just wanted to talk to a counselor. But the number one reason across the board, it increased in 2020, but it didn't change a lot, were depression, anxiety, and stress. Those are the top. Now, when we look at EAPs, employee assistance program, who work with other industries combined with attorneys, we still see generically across the board, the number one reason is relationships, the impact on significant relationships. But a lot of times, though, if you get below the surface, it's still that overwhelm, that stress, that depression and anxiety. Trauma is real. Trauma happens. Trauma is on a continuum of how severe. The key to trauma is the sooner you intervene, the sooner you unpack it and debrief over it, the less long-term impact. When someone goes through trauma, they're not going to automatically develop PTSD. Okay. In fact, that would be our goal. And so to me, in the scenario that was described, that attorney went through a level of trauma. Yes, they recognize it was beyond their control, but that doesn't help. That doesn't alleviate the what ifs and if I had only, and you know, all those type of things. So contacting the LAP, going ahead and talking with somebody, just getting it. And I know what's normal anymore, but we want to normalize the feelings, not the experience, because it's not normal to lose somebody, you know, and not be a traumatic event. So in that case, we would say, call us. And like Plamen's case, maybe you only talk to the counselor 3 times or 4 times, and then you're like, if I might share, I'm a runner. And last year in a 10K, a fellow runner collapsed. I was part of a team that stopped and administered aid. He did not survive, but what made it traumatic is we were unable to get professional help. There, I won't give you all the details, but to get EMTs and so forth to respond. I called. I got to work and said, guys, I got to talk to somebody. And I talked to a counselor, and that's exactly what she helped me with. She helped me, she listened, and then she helped me unpack, reframe, and release myself from that traumatic event. And so that's actually a great example of using the LAP.
And Lisa, thank you for pinpointing that trauma can happen in any way. It can happen in very unexpected ways. Trauma can happen depending on how a certain interaction goes in the courtroom, and I end up feeling completely ashamed and distraught. Even that can be traumatic. So it's important to recognize that at this point, as Lynn said earlier on, self-help or self-care is not likely to work. This is when we need to speak with someone to have the appropriate type of conversation to provide the adequate support for traumatic experiences. It can be anything, even like a huge quarrel at home can raise to that level of trauma that requires just being able to process with someone who can be there with us and provide support. So thank you for highlighting that, Lisa. Really helpful. Any other questions to Kelli or Lisa based on our role plays so far? Again, you can ask them to me directly, or feel free to speak up, whatever feels right to you.
Plamen, while they're thinking if they do have questions, there's something I wanted to point out that that you said during our role play, and that, you know, I was incredibly stressed when I initially called you, but now like I think I'm good. And you know, there's this huge myth and misconception that in order for somebody to need therapy, you have to be in crisis, that things have to have gotten so bad that that's the only option left. And it's like, that's one of the things I'm most passionate about from a mental health education perspective, is helping people to understand you don't have to be in crisis to seek out therapy. You can go to therapy for something as simple as, I have a goal and I want help determining what's the best way to reach it, or what's the quickest way to reach it, or, you know, whatever that may be. So you don't have to be in crisis. It's just as simple as, I want to do, you know, X in my life, and let me get some, you know, some objective opinions as to how I can do that. You know, like I said, better, differently, quicker, whatever it might be. So I wish more people would seek therapy prior to there being a traumatic event or a crisis.
And Kelli, thank you very much for pointing that out, because the last time I chose to use my 6 was exactly kind of like a general sense of something being off, nothing exact, nothing specific. But in the meetings, we really started getting to the source of what was causing this, like generally being off. And I'm really grateful for the support that I received, because I could start engaging in specific practices. I could start doing certain types of things, experiment with things that I hadn't thought about or didn't know about before. That really shifted the experience and like provided this lightening up. So I am a big also supporter of let's go the preventative way, and just ideally, in my ideal world, just like we see our, like regular doctors, we will see our mental health professionals, counselors, therapists, whatever, just on a regular basis, because I have found it to be an incredibly powerful support, especially for the draining profession that we engage in. It is a very valuable perspective.
Right. And I think so it's okay from time to time, especially for attorneys, to sit back and instead of focusing on solving other people's problems, focus on improving your own life, improving your relationships, improving your mental health, improving your stress level. Y'all do such a great job of helping other people solve their problems in their life. Help yourself do the same thing, even if you're not, like I said, in quote unquote crisis.
Yeah. So with that, I do want to give us the opportunity to connect in smaller groups, just talk about what happened. And we will do that for a little bit shorter than we had originally planned. Let's do that for about 6 minutes, Amber. And so what happens is that we will be put in separate groups of just fewer people. The breakout sessions are not recorded, so you can speak freely. You can choose to use your video to, switch on your video, keep it off, whatever makes sense to you. And if you need questions to explore, please bring any other remaining concerns for the remainder of our time. Otherwise, just get together and have a fun chat. See you in 6 minutes. All right. Are we in the big room or are we in a separate?
We are in the main session. This is continuing to be recorded, just FYI.
Okay.
But Amber, you're able to assign it like
Yes.
that? Okay, nice.
I'm always amazed at those Zoom skills that I don't have whenever people are able to do like those breakout sessions.
Yeah.
Would you like us to get into a separate room?
If you would like to be in a room, that's fine. Otherwise, you can just hang out here until we're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm asking Lynn and Lisa and Kelli. Yes.
I'm good to stay here.
Okay.
I have one comment, and this is as the client completely, had my client hat on, wasn't thinking about the other side at all. For Lisa, and you said it, you were clear about it, that you are always going to ask questions about self-harm, harm to others, suicidal ideation. If somebody comes to you and they're saying, I'm just stressed out, are you still going to ask that?
We are.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right. I mean, I thought that's what you meant. It's a little bit off-putting, it was to me. But
it is. And we spend time training as a team because my colleagues feel that way too. They're like, how do I bring that up? Or exactly it being off-putting. And it does become a skill to be able to work it into a conversation. It depends again sort of on where that person is. When somebody's used a little bit moderate language, like at the end of my rope, that's why I went to that when I was going to ask the question. I pulled their actual words. What we don't want to do, and the temptation is definitely there, we don't want to preface it by saying, now I know you weren't saying anything like this at all, but are you?
Yeah.
Because then we've made it unacceptable for them to say, gosh, sometimes I do think.
Hmm.
So again,
Okay.
professionally, we do our best to make it palatable, for lack of a better word. But yes, at the end of the day, we're going to ask it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And in my experience on that, I mean, it's a better safe than sorry scenario, especially when you look at the suicide rates that unfortunately seem to be going the wrong direction.
Yes.
So
Mhm. Kelly, I missed the slight beginning when there was a question and you said, well, I tend not to see people who are depressed or anxious. That would be more, at least in the LAP. I see X. What do you see? What is it, because it's Caron and you're saying rehab?
no, so one of the Plamen had asked when we get called, can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just heard some noise and I wasn't sure.
Yeah. You were breaking
Plamen
up.
had asked when we get called, what are we typically getting called about? What issues? And I was saying, well, due to what I do for a living, what I'm getting called about is usually specifically some type of substance use disorder with co-occurring depression, anxiety, what have you. It's just rare that I personally get called with just stress or anxiety simply due to what I do for a living and why people would get referred to me. So that's probably the.
Okay, thanks.
Just a follow-up comment to some of the questions that we ask on the call is, again, we're trying to shine the light. We're trying to move that veil of secrecy, and the shame.
In general, you mean anytime you take a call or yeah. Uh-huh. Look, I mean, I'm just blown away, honestly. It's just wonderful.
And I can confirm that whenever I have called the hotline or whenever I've connected with a therapist, I have usually been reassured. I mean, part of that is actually I have had quite a bit of experience just working with therapists because I found it always to be such an incredibly helpful thing. But it has been the cyclical nature of going in as needed, addressing the issues. I mean, sometimes it takes months and months to get into some really deep things. But at the end of the day, I have never regretted that making the decision to actively seek and work with a therapist. It has always been tremendously helpful.
Yeah, I'm 38 years and counting, so I've never regretted it either.
Yeah. Lynn, there's something strange about your sound. It seems like when you switch on your microphone, it starts breaking up. Yeah, like
sorry.
when you speak right now.
Oh, you know what?
Just
you
FYI,
know
breakout
what?
rooms are closing.
Okay, I'll just stop talking.
Oh, this was just a little bit better. So anyway, people about to rejoin us.
We'll close in about 30 seconds.
Ah, okay, got it.
Sorry, I just wanted
No,
to throw
no
that
worries.
in case
Yeah,
you were
thank
getting
you. No,
into
that's
something.
good. That's good. Yes. Yeah. So we will move toward closing when they rejoin. I'd love to hear any other questions or observations that come up. The reason I asked you for the notes, Amber, is that someone did express a concern once again. Isn't it a violation of confidentiality for people to show their names? Well, it isn't actually, because you know that that's how Zoom works.
Right.
So that's the answer. Right. Welcome back into the brave souls who actually stayed in the small groups. Is everyone back, Amber? Okay. So thank you, and would love to hear from you. Anything else you'd like to share? Any other questions or concerns? Things that came up with your group, within your group? And now you can legitimately say, you know, a friend of mine wants to know, or our group wants to know. So you're good.
I will, this is Dawn. I'll just say that the group I was in, we all had the same feelings about how extremely helpful it was to hear, to actually have you guys go through that role play, because it really does take the, I'd say anxiety, right? The nervousness, that I have no idea what calling would be like. I actually assumed that when you called, that you would immediately make an appointment. I had no idea until today, and you can talk about me later, but I had no idea until today that when you dial the number, you actually talk to a person and they get enough information to kind of see where you are so you can move forward. I had no idea. That was very helpful to know. So thank you.
And Don, there's absolutely no way to know it until you do it.
That's right.
So I realized that was such a big unknown in my own going through the process, which is why I thought that sharing this, like totally putting it on display, is very necessary. So the mystery is no longer there. There'll be only the individual mysteries that unfold in each conversation.
Right.
So Amber and Plamen, one of the things I would like for us to do is figure out a way to link to this session underneath where we have to use your 6 and to call, so that if someone clicks that and they can see and get an idea, just like what we presented today, of what could happen as part of their as part of the outreach, to help demystify it, just like you stated it. And if it's right there when people are looking in the first place, that they click on that, and it may get more people to ease their process and thought process on using their 6.
That's a great idea. And to the extent that we're able, maybe we could even like do shorter edited clips about this part and that part, just for the sake of time.
Right.
But yes. And by the way, Amber is planning to send a follow-up email, which will include some resources. They will basically be Lynn's article from October of last year about using the program. It will be the video recording of our first touch event, in which we started becoming very real about the issues and obstacles we're facing as a profession. And whenever available, there will be a link to the recording of today's session as well. So everyone who registered, regardless of whether they participated or not, will receive that information in a follow-up email. And we are just beginning to think of all the ways in which we can continue using and reusing that information going forward. So thank you, Javon. Any other comments or questions or closing remarks as we are wrapping up our time together? Okay, we have answered every single question. Fantastic. So, Lisa, I think that means that you should expect a big rise in the number of calls, because everyone now knows how to do this, and they'll be calling the line. But no, really.
I hope so, and we're ready.
Yes, but honestly, this is our big encouragement, just to reach out, make that call, even if we don't know what's going on. And sometimes it is perfectly fine to say, I don't even know what's going on. Let's figure it out, or can we figure it out?
Absolutely.
That has been really, really helpful. Good.
Thank you all for this. This was very, very helpful. I think that we should be able to, if we can do clips from it, there's quite a few nuggets, if you will, that we could send out. I definitely want to capture Kelly's remarks about when you can call and it not being in crisis, so that I'm not the only one saying that over and over again when I'm talking to people. I said, Kelli said it too, look.
Box, Javon.
Yes.
Say it as often and as loudly as I can.
Love it. Thank you, guys.
I often use premarital counseling as an example. That's proactive, that's preventative. You could use the program for that.
That's true. Yeah.
Fantastic contributions, insights, and sharing from our guests. Thank you so much. Special thanks to our participants, because without you, these meetings are meaningless. Please share with colleagues. Please let them know about this. We want to grow our forum. We want to also increase our level of comfort with these conversations. The discomfort will linger for a while. We're just beginning to have these public conversations. It's normal. We'll be awkward and we'll be uncomfortable. We'll stumble. That's fine. That's part of what we're going through. And the more we can just allow each other to witness and to walk through this together, I think the stronger, the better, the healthier we're likely to be as a profession, and each one of us individually as a member of this profession. So with my sincere thanks and best wishes for health, support, and the courage to look for support and help when you need it. Thank you for joining. Take care. Be well.
Bye, everyone.
And
Bye.
see you next month at the next event. Bye.